saying you don't have a right to know what our government's doing because they're separate from us. You don't have a right to know. Let's look at that First Amendment through the eyes of people such as Thomas Paine and Benjamin Franklin. Think about it. Freedom of speech. You know something? You can talk about it. Heck, even if you don't know about something, you just know the words of the subject, you can sit there and flap your gums on it. I do it every morning. But you're allowed to talk about the government without the government saying, I forbid you from speaking about us or about that subject. You're allowed to write about it. You're allowed to publish. That's what freedom of the press is. You're allowed to investigate and find out what our government is doing and inform the people. In fact, if a law is passed, the people must be informed of what the law is. The law is not enforceable unless people are told what the law is or can get access to what the laws are so they can make an informed decision. So if they're not published and publicized, they're not good laws. So we need the press to tell us, what the government is doing. And where Miss Norton is completely off base is saying that the people don't have a right to know. They do. We have a right to know what's being said in the Senate and what bills are being voted on and what those votes are. Same with the House. We have a right to know what our politicians are saying in open speeches and in closed-door sessions. And there's a very, very narrow exception, and that is when they're dealing with classified material of a national defense or national security level. And that's such a small little sliver of information that's dang near negligible when you're talking about the grand scheme. And this is coming from somebody who worked in the intelligence field. Yes, there are things that the public, I shouldn't say doesn't need to know, and maybe they don't, because really what are they going to do about it unless they're actively engaged in operations based on that information or intelligence. But there are things that it's better off the public not know, and it's not so much because we don't trust the public, although that's could be part of it. It's more along the lines of, if our public knows, somebody's going to flap their gums, and then our enemies who we need to not know, or not know that we know, suddenly know that we know, and then that information becomes worthless, and we can't go forward with our plans to better defend our country and better help our neighbors, our neighboring countries who ask for that help, the ones that we have decided to. So that's a small sliver of information that kind of falls within that the public doesn't need to know, or the public should not know. But that is such a small amount compared to what we do need to know. We do need to know what kind of negotiations are going on inside the White House between the president and Vladimir Putin. We need to know. In fact, there are places where you can get transcriptions of their phone calls. They get published. If not from our side, I'm going to tell you right now, Russia publishes them in both Russian and English. So, we have a right to know? Yes, we do. Like I said, unless we're dealing with direct military national defense items. But even in those cases, I'm going to say flat out, the American people have a right to know some of that stuff more than other people in other countries do in most cases. So consider that. If they're flapping their gums to other nations, why them and not our public? There are reasons for it, I'm sure, but I would be more concerned about that than Miss Eleanor Norton saying that we don't have a right to know anything that's going on in these closed-door sessions. Sorry, lady. The First Amendment kind of implies that yes, we do, because if a reporter somehow gets in there and eavesdrops through the heating vents or what have you, then reports it out in the newspaper, based on that First Amendment, you've got no right to stop them. So, let's just ponder that. Now, other things to consider that are going on in the world. I just went off and off and off about Miss Eleanor and have to go in here now and... Oh yeah, just real quick. Go ahead and... I've got a little bit more of a write-up concerning Miss Norton's gum flapping and statement there over at BuzzPo. So go ahead and give it a read up. And there's a good little meme up there, so to speak. If you want to grab that and share that around, just make sure you let everybody know that you picked it up over at BuzzPo, and that give me credit for having written it up if you like it. If you don't, go leave some comments. Leave comments either way. We like comments. Just keep them civil. But also over on BuzzPo, there's a little article about, well, Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro, who used to be, I don't know if he still is or not, but I do know he used to be over at Breitbart. And good guy. Well, evidently, he was a guest over on BuzzPo Radio, and he was on to make the case for criminal prosecution of the Obama administration, and went through explanations and how a slight change to the RICO Act could be used against Barack Obama and the current administration. Interesting when you consider it. Yeah, so go on over there and take a listen to that radio show and see what Ben has to say. He's a very smart guy. He's a lawyer, but we don't hold that against him, just like we don't hold it against Kurt Schlichter for being a lawyer. Other things going on. Well, we're almost at the end of the show. So, what I'm going to do is kind of preview you, kind of give you a little bit of a glimpse. Not sure where it's going to be published yet, but there's an open source document, a Freedom of Information Act type document floating out that I got my nitty-gritty fingers on concerning the VA reform that I'm going through it, and there's several nuggets. I'm trying to decide whether I want to write one article on it or kind of break it up into several smaller articles, easier to digest. But there's some interesting things coming down. Some of these things I look at and say, yeah, it looks kind of good, but other things in the spell I look at and go, where are they getting this stuff? I want to know what drugs our legislature is taking, where they get access to them, and if they're magical pharmaceuticals that cannot be detected by any drug test known to man currently. and what the potential long-term side effects are, because if they're nil and it's some kind of a miracle recreational pharmaceutical that they're taking, I'm wondering how I can get access to this. But in other words, it seems like, looking at this, it seems like it was written by people who are high on something and not a rational thought in their mind whatsoever. But evidently, as Miss Norton would say, they know things that we don't, and we don't have a right to know, and that's where they get their information, so they can make their decisions. We just need to shut up and take it. Well, I don't. And as a veteran, I'm not going to. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to look at this this proposed comprehensive kind of reform thing. It's supposed to adjudicate both the Senate bill and the House bill and make things work. But the one piece of ridiculousness that I want you all to consider is that it appears the primary fix to the corruption within the VA is, according to what I'm looking here, to throw more money into it. Just throw more money. Give more money to corrupt people. That is what appears to be their answer. And that tune is $17 billion. Okay, veterans need the money, they need the benefits. Okay, got that. I'm right along with that. Although there are already billions being wasted by the VA on things that have nothing to do with taking care of the veterans. So maybe you should eliminate those things first. But the surprising thing is here, not only are they throwing $17 billion more dollars to the VA, but that bill increases the federal deficit. In other words, how far short of revenue we're going to come, or how much short our revenue is going to be compared to the bills that we owe, by $12 billion. So we're going to end up having to borrow the money from somewhere, which of course means the national debt is about to go up by about $12 billion more, which might seem like nothing when we're over $17 billion, coming up closer to 18. But right now, every dollar deficit that gets turned into federal debt or national debt is too much. So there has to be another way of reforming the VA other than to throw more money into a corrupt organization. But there's some good things in there, potentially good things too. So we'll take a in-depth look at that and kind of continue to read through it. I got through about 2/3 of it this morning before the show. I'm going to go through and read through it again and do a little bit of research and look forward to a couple articles from me coming out about the proposed reform to the VA that's coming out of our wonderful legislature. My only big question on this one is, will Harry Reid even allow this to come up to debate on the Senate floor? Yeah. Back full circle. And that's going to bring us to the end of today's show. I hope everybody has had a good time. I didn't get any callers, so maybe one of these days, maybe somebody will actually pick up their phone and dial 520-226-8567. Once again, write it down, make a note of it. That's 520-226-8567. Then call into the show while we're live and discuss any of the topics of the day, or maybe even bring one to our attention that we can discuss live and on the air and have a dialogue. But until that time comes, hopefully that's tomorrow. This is Paul-Gregory Matuszak, and this has been the Mouth of Matuszak show for Tuesday, July 29th, 2014. And we will see you tomorrow on the 30th. Have a great day and a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.